Hello everyone, I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. Today's topic is going to be about near-death experiences. Now I know I've covered this before, but so many of you have been on our website, which you can reach by typing in metaspeak.com on Facebook and I guess YouTube, and said that you'd like to see it covered again. Not everyone has caught the show since last winter when we started, I guess it was last winter. And you want to have definitions and you want to have reasons why you've had a near-death experience. And I made notes on that because I think those are very good questions and very good points to make. Not every near-death experience is the same. Now, for those of you joining us for the first time because someone has said, hey, you have to catch Linda Bennett on Metaphysically Speaking, this is a program designed to help you understand why you're on the planet.
That's been going on for a long time.
For a long, long time. Back in the 1880s, I was given the term metaphysically speaking in meditation. Aristotle describes metaphysics as the unseen world. And speaking brings it into the seen world because we're here on a physical planet, so we might as well know about physical things. There are some spiritual or religious people who will tell you that you just need to A, either worry about your soul, or B, worry about your physical body, and whatever happens after you die doesn't really matter because it doesn't really affect you. I mean, the junk I've heard is so amazing. I wonder how these people haven't been driven out of town tarred and feathered like they did in the old days.
Pitchforks.
Pitchforks. That's my producer, Shawnee, my executive producer, Shawnee. And we shouldn't laugh because that's what they did. They used to burn women at the stake, claiming that they were witches when the husbands really wanted their property. And so this is not a religion. I happen to be a minister with Alliance of Divine Love Ministries. You can find that on .org. And we are a non-sectarian. That means we don't push any particular religion. Organization. I happen to be a yogi, which means we go to God in any and all ways. Where Wiccans generally focus on God through nature. I look at God in every way. Whether it's nature, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Mary, whether it's Buddha, doesn't matter to me. Because to me, everything is a spark of God. And that is really the truth. If you never listen to anything else, I have to say, if you just remember that we are all part of the God stuff. Bacteria shares 80% of our DNA. So think about that. So if you want to understand where you fit into the planet, where you fit into the universe, know that you're a tiny but important part of the puzzle. And when it's fully assembled, then there will be a transformation in the universe. Right now, I'm praying and hoping we get a transformation on this planet, where we get rid of the ugliness and the meanness and the vicious politics and the selfishness and the greed and the pharmaceutical companies and the chemical companies running this country. I'm sick of it. And it takes more action on everyone's part to make things happen the right way. And the Indians, the Native Americans in this country have a wonderful expression. I don't know if it's the Lakota Sioux or the Cherokee, where they say whenever they make a decision about something important, they think about the effects it'll have 7 generations from now. Unfortunately, many of the business people in this country who are pulling the strings think about 7 seconds from now. And they don't really care about 7 generations from now. Greed to me is one of the worst of the deadliest sins. So, metaphysically speaking, covers all topics. We do politics, we do religion, we do spirituality, we do how you talk to people. I was going into an elevator today, and this gentleman stood aside and said, please go ahead of me. I said, oh, thank you. You're such a nice gentleman. He said, I try. I said, where did you come from? He said, I live down the street, but I try to do this at least once a day where I do a nice favor for somebody. So it can be on acts of kindness. It can be on anything you like. And also pets. If you check our website, metaspeak.com, you will see that I have some recommendations there of some fabulous people, including my veterinarian, Dr. Joel Murphy of Animal and Bird Medical Center of Palm Harbor. He is on there. And who else do we have? Dr. Herr? who's our acupuncturist and Chinese physician trained in Beijing as a Western doctor as well. So I only recommend people I know and whose services I use. I would not recommend somebody I don't know or as a favor to somebody else just to get their name on the air. So if it's a recommendation from me, you can be pretty certain, and I am very picky and very selective about who I use in my life. And I think we should all be. That will get rid of the people who are not qualified and get them out of our lives and just encourage the people who are qualified. Because it's very discouraging when you're qualified and somebody else isn't, that person gets the job. So you want to make sure that you check as a reference whoever we have there on the website, and you can call my office for something else local if you want to. Okay, and the office number is 727-736-4567. If you have questions or comments about the show, please leave them on the Facebook page. Or you're going to say
Metaspeak.com.
Metaspeak.com.
Which is short for Metaphysically Speaking.
There you go. So you've got all the information, and we're going to start covering the near-death experiences right now. I want to cover two types of near-death experiences. There's the actual physical near-death experience, where I have had many of them. I died 3 times from drowning. I died from the measles, where they gave me the last rites. I died from pneumonia. I cannot have any type of nebulized, which means breathing in type of medication or anesthesia. I basically lost count after 11 or 12. So I will tell you that I remember only 3 of them really clearly. And some people spend, I think the longest person that I remember on I survived and back on A&E Bio was 104 minutes with a heart attack. If you're in water, better be cool water than warm water, because you can survive. I think the time on that was 63 minutes for that kid that was in the water. And you think, gee whiz, how can you survive in water? Well, think about it. If you're in the ammoniac sac, you're swimming around in your mother's uterus in the sac, which is contained and has all the things you need, and you get your nutrition, etc. So children will survive usually more often than older people because they have the recent memory of breathing underwater, and your body goes into a state of suspended animation. So there are near-death experiences from an illness, from an accident, whether you fall off a ladder, whether you have a car accident, whether you fall off a boat, plane crash, all kinds of things. And there's also an astral near-death experience, where they've actually monitored people in sleep studies and discovered that they have stopped breathing for several minutes. And by the time they get in there, I think they have a safety time of like 3 minutes, but sometimes people aren't always paying attention. So they wake the person up to make sure they're fine. And I'm not talking about people with breathing problems, and they usually stop breathing for a minute or two if they have a blocked airway, and that's called sleep apnea. I'm talking about people who actually stop breathing because they're in the astral world and they don't need any oxygen. And every now and then what happens usually is like every 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, you'll take a breath just to refresh your physical body. But you're out of your body and you're having an astral experience, which is what most of the universe is made up of. Not physical stuff, but stuff. Astral stuff, etheric stuff, which is the highest level of the astral world. So let's go back to the physical experiences. Why would you be having your near-death experience, and when are you most likely to have it? Well, barring any crazy people on the road texting and driving, or whatever they're doing, or drinking and driving and drugging and driving, you usually have a near-death experience in a 12th house transit. Now, people who have listened to the show before know what a 12th house transit is, so I will re-explain it for those of you who don't know, because I know we get new listeners all the time. 40 days before your birth sign sets in, 60 if it's Scorpio, and 40 days before your rising sign sets in, or your ascendant, which is what your time of birth indicates on your birthday and your location. And your rising is what your sun sign will be in your next lifetime. So the older you get, the more you're responding to your rising. So unless you're, say, a Libra person, Libra sun, Libra rising, where you get everything done at one particular time, but it can be a little bit of an overload, there are 2 times a year that you're more susceptible to having things go wrong. And I may be the exception because January, February, and March are always lousy months for me, and those are not 12th house transits for me. Go figure, I got no clue. But normally 40 days before, we're in the sign of Libra now, so 40 days before Libra set in. So right now we're affected by Libra and Scorpio as well. And soon Sagittarius will be peaking in there. So that means if you're winding a clock on your birthday, it goes tick, 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 right before your birthday. Then it winds up again. Same thing for your rising. You've got 2 clocks in your life going on. And so therefore you're lower on energy, you're lower on focus, you're more likely to get a cold or have a little fender bender. You need to be more careful, you need to be more observant about things going on around you. You're more likely to lose your purse or lose your wallet or have some crazy person steal your wallet. You're more likely to have things go wrong. More likely to have your car need to be towed or anything that can go wrong in life. You'll think, what is wrong? It's a time for testing you, because the universe says you're not a physical body. Your soul is in a physical body, because if you weren't in a physical body, how would anybody pay attention to you? A floating voice dashing through the supermarket, nobody would pay attention. So you need a physical body, and you have to honor that physical body, because it's the temple that houses your soul. So the universe is saying, how are you paying attention to yourself? Are you really observant of what's going on around you? Are you eating the proper foods? Are you taking the proper medications? Are you taking the proper vitamins? Are you with the right kind of people? Are you in the right job? Are you living in the right place? What are your plans? Why are you here? Are you doing anything good for anybody else? Are you doing anything good for the bunnies and the squirrels? And I've got a rooster. Turns out the people moved. Whose rooster it was. A rooster adopted me. It was a rooster that got out from the people who owned him. And I went over one day and I left a note saying, your rooster is in my yard. I gave him directions. They were right around the corner. Please come get him. That was 3 months ago. I discovered from somebody who drove over to my house yesterday that they moved. And that's why they didn't want their rooster. They were apparently not willing to put the rooster in the car and truck him on over to wherever they moved to. So this guy has been here now for 3 months. And apparently some of my neighbors are quite disturbed because he sits on the stone fence in the front and announces the day. And they don't want to hear it. So I've invited them to capture him and bring him over to a sanctuary, but nobody has done so far. So you say to yourself, why do these silly things happen? Why do these important things happen? You're supposed to pay attention to why you're on the planet. Are you kind to animals? Are you taking care of your pets? Are you bringing them in for regular examinations? Are you bringing your cats in for the dental as well as your dogs? Dental problems can kill people, and they also kill your pets. Kidney problems, heart disease, brain function problems. Same thing with humans. Are you taking care of your health? Are there scores you need to settle by having a consultation with somebody? Even if it's confrontational, plan on making it pleasant. Who are the individuals you plan on bringing into your life and why? Now, so many young women especially think they have to be married. Why? You don't have to be married to be a person. You came in by yourself. You're going to leave by yourself. Think about getting married as a life choice. Not just because you want to have a wedding. People frighten me sometimes, individuals. You wonder why you have NDEs, near-death experiences, because the universe is trying to get your attention. Now, there are 2 types of NDEs, really, as far as physical goes. The one where you actually physically die. No brain waves, no blood pressure, nothing. You are stone cold dead. The other is where you are in basically almost dead and not expected to recover. That's usually a car accident or a high fever. or some other type of disease that they have not been able to identify with you yet. So therefore you don't have the medication that you need. Pardon me. I have a little catch in my throat. So you will find that you have the same experiences, but probably not for as long a time. You can usually have more time in the astral with a physical experience if you're in the coma, in and out of a coma where you're dead, partially alive, dead, partially alive. And what happens? Your guardian angel or angels take you into the part of the astral world where you meet aspects of God who you're familiar with and maybe not so familiar with. If you were raised Christian, you would recognize Jesus and Mary. If you were raised Buddhist, you would recognize Buddha, you'd recognize Avalokitesvara, you'd recognize Green Tara. If you were raised Hindu, you'd recognize Krishna and Radha. You would recognize beings or aspects of God that you are familiar with. What would be the point if you didn't know who they were? If you're the scaredy cat type and you were raised in a fundamental religion where you think anything other than what your aspect of God is, you'd be terrified and you wouldn't listen to the information that was given to you. That's what you'll see first, or a loved one on the other side who has information for you, telling you perhaps take driving lessons, telling you perhaps to get away from a spouse that isn't good for you, telling you not to take a trip that you're planning to take because there's going to be a problem. Whatever your message is, it's important information for you. And sometimes the information you're given is not so happy, because perhaps you're leading a rather decadent life. I've worked with people who have actually been to a hellish experience. In the Bible, it says, "My Father's house has many mansions." That means there are many levels of the astral world. Where you and I are going is not going to be where Hitler is, or a mass murderer like Jeffrey Dahmer, or someone who has molested children, or injured animals in a cruel fashion. They're going to be in their own type of hell. And we're going to pick up on that when we come back with more Metaphysically Speaking. This is Linda Bennett. Welcome back. This is Linda Bennett with Metaphysically Speaking, and we left off in an unhappy, hellish existence that you might be shown if you're leading a decadent lifestyle, or you're selfish, or you're an abuser of some type. And the reason you're shown this, not only because it exists, and maybe you're one of those New Agers, which I'm not saying in a happy way, who thinks there's no such thing as hell, everything is happy, everything's everything. Well, maybe in the very, 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 very long run, everything is everything, but still not everything. Because once something is so evil it cannot be rescued, the God force destroys its existence as it is and reformats the cells of the soul. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can just be rearranged, if you remember your science classes. And your energy might be a meteorite. So you might be shown an unhappy part of the astral world, so number one, to convince you that it does exist. Number two, it would be explained to you the types of people who go there. If you're a religious fundamentalist of some type and you've been told, like I was as a Catholic kid, that you have to be Catholic to go to heaven, you're shown that's not true. And you're shown that people who may do a certain thing that you disagree with, or are of a religion you're not familiar with, that they're all going to hell, as your Protestant minister may have told you, or your Muslim minister, your Muslim imam may have told you. That's not true. So you're shown that the people who are in this hellish existence are there because they have been cruel, or they have abused the privileges of life that they've been given. And then they're shown a happy existence, which is the alternative that everybody wants. But you don't get there just because you're pretty, or you've got great pecs, or your parents are wealthy. You don't buy your way into heaven, I promise you. You work your way into heaven. You earn your way to the level of the existence that is there for you. And sometimes you just need a couple of minutes to see all this, because time is different in the universe, in the astral world. We have to have clocked seconds and minutes because when you're being born and you gasp your first breath, you're now in the state of maturity, which the end result of maturity is physical death. So the minute you're born, you're dying. So you only have so much time. And if you're not paying attention and you're not reading the right books or listening to the right lectures or hearing the right people, the universe has to get your attention. And if you're a worthwhile being, they want you to understand that there are many levels of existence for all souls. And you want to be in a happier existence. So for those of you who say, well, how do I know if I'm doing right or wrong? Use common sense. You don't smack your kid around. You don't smack anybody around. You don't harm your animal. You take care of your pets, your children, your spouse. Act as if God is watching. Because guess what? The God force is watching. The angels are watching. Your friends and loved ones on the other side are watching. When you think of somebody who's passed on, they're watching you. They're letting you know that they're there. They're reassuring you that you have not been abandoned. I've talked before about how I still have my cats all around me who've crossed over. I have a sick little kitty right now that just celebrated her 19th birthday, and I want her to stay with me. But nobody can live forever. But I've threatened her life. If she dies on me, I'll kill her. But she's a sweetheart, and we all move along. I saw a really nice movie the other night called Little Tree. It's about a little boy raised by his grandparents. I didn't see like the first 15 minutes, so I don't know what happened. But he's raised by his grandparents. His father was Caucasian. His grandfather was Caucasian. His grandmother was Indian. And she was explaining what happens and why you need to go to the other side. That when you're on Earth, you gather so much energy and so much information, and you get so smart, but then there's part of the smartness or the wisdom that you can't acquire here. And when you pass on, then you get the rest of your wisdom, which I thought was a great way of explaining this. And this was a Cherokee tribe that they were referring to. So when the grandfather passed on first, the grandmother said that he got his wisdom and that she'll meet him soon. So I thought that is precious, and it's true. And when the grandfather was dying, he said to his little grandson, it was good. It'll be better next time. So they're referring to the understanding that life is a cycle of birth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth. There's no such thing as perpetual death. Unless you're one of the spiritual monsters in the world and the universe takes care of you in its own way. So your near-death experiences are to teach you something. You might also have a health problem that's a DNA problem. Well, now with all the doctors that are specializing in DNA understandings and medical procedures and how to diagnose your different DNA problems, you can have your DNA run by your doctor. You can go online and check it. Ancestry.com is a good place to find out about your family genetics. But having your DNA tested, I can't remember the name of the company that does it, but ask your doctor. They'll be able to tell you. Because if you had like all the females in your family die in their 40s, you want to know what's going on. So you want to make sure that even if you're a male, like I said years ago, men should get mammographies, and I was laughed at. Well, guess what? I sent my son-in-law years ago to get a mammography. He was the only man there. The last time he went, there were 4 or 5 other men, I think, in the room with him. And doctors are recognizing that men get breast cancer too. I personally do not get a mammography every year. I think that's too much radiation. Between your x-rays from your dentist and the x-rays from your chiropractor and the x-rays from your mammography, that's way too much radiation. That's my opinion. You do what you feel is right for you. So you might be having a near-death experience because you have a karmic, a karmic problem with your health, and you need to diagnose that. And we've covered the fact that you might be getting a lesson, a warning, or a blessing. Because how many of you have felt that life was too oppressive and you couldn't go on, And what was the point of this anyway? Your religion has failed you. Maybe your family has failed you. Maybe you feel like you're alone on a desert island that's never been discovered before in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And you're noticing the waves are getting bigger. What's the point of life? The universe figures, you know what? I think we've pushed her a little too far. Maybe we need to get this guy over here and tell him what's going on. So you may have a car accident, or you may fall off a ladder, or you may fall in your pond, or something else might happen to you where you stop breathing. And you're physically dead, but you're more spiritually alive than you have been in a long time. Because they show you things that are coming up. Some of which you will remember and some of which you will not remember. I find the people who want to pretend there's no such thing as an energy called God or the light or the force don't remember. People who know that there's something, even if they call themselves agnostics, which means, okay, there's a God, show me. Or who used to belong to a religion but don't anymore. They meditate, they sit quietly out in their yard, they do whatever they can to share their spirituality and gain more wisdom and insight. They tend to remember certain things. But you are not going to remember everything. Because you're not supposed to have all of that wisdom on the conscious level. However, it stays in the unconscious, subconscious level. And you will access it as you need it. Say you're shown how to stop bleeding. You barely remember it, and a few days later you totally forget it. And one day you stop and help people at a car accident, and somebody's bleeding, and boom, you know exactly what to do. You think, where did that come from? It came from your near-death experience. So you could be learning lessons that are important for you, for your loved ones. You could be told that somebody needs to go to the doctor. You could be told that you need to go to the doctor. You could be shown the outcome. You could be shown how you're going to cross over in the future. And there you're given a basis of time, say 6 months, 6 years, because you have certain amount of things that you need to take care of that you promised to do in your life, which is what your astrology chart is all about. It's your lessons, assets, and liabilities. So they're saying, stop stalling, move it along, you got this stuff to take care of. Your astral near-death experience, again, you'll stop breathing for a short time, and you're going to say, well, why astral, why not physical? Well, suppose you're a surgeon, or a policeman, or a policewoman, or a fireman or a firewoman, or you're working with autistic children. You don't have time to go down. There isn't a recovery time for you. There isn't a fall down, almost dead time for you. So they have to take you in the astral world because the work you are doing on the physical plane is so important and so critical that you get every bit of sleep that you can. That they say to you, okay, we have to do this astrally because we don't have time physically. Or you might not have health insurance and you can't afford to rack up thousands upon thousands of dollars of medical debt. Think about that when the election comes. Romney wants to eliminate Medicare and Medicaid, and President Obama doesn't. I think in a civilized world, everyone should be insured. And I'm not talking about organ transplants because that's another show. I don't know if we'll get a chance to get to that in the last segment. We may not. I don't believe that we should all be paying for somebody's sex change operation. Sorry if I'm irritating somebody, but that's your choice and it should be your coverage. You can get supplemental insurance to take care of that, but I don't think taxpayers should be paying for it. I think women should have full health care that includes non-glamorous abortion, which is what I call the woman who says, oh, I just might stretch out my stomach. Birth control should be fully covered. We should have the best medical care in the world. We don't, because the pharmaceutical companies run the joint, sadly. So when you're voting, think of how your next 7 years are going to go, and then think about the next 7 generations. And who do you want running this country? a compassionate man with a full spectrum of experience, or a business guy whose company put other companies out of business and people out of work. Just a thought. And maybe that's also why you're having an astral experience, because maybe you're a driver, maybe you are a subway conductor or a train conductor, or you drive a bus, and you have lots of people that you are responsible for during the daytime, and you have to be so cautious and so alert, because sometimes people who have near-death experiences need to sleep a lot for the next few days, because they go back up to the astral world and they reconnect, they get further information, or they hear it again, because maybe their soul didn't take it in properly or fully, and so they're told, okay, go back or you won't be able to use your body. We'll come back for you in another few days. This has nothing to do with UFO experiences. It's a natural course of events. You are updated periodically. All of you have had astral death experiences, I promise you, if you're over the age of 5. And sometimes, this is why children around the age of 5 get very serious illnesses. It's when I died of measles. I had just turned 5. Because 5 is considered a critical year. The child pretty much discovers whether or not they want to stay on the physical plane and what kind of instruction they need. And they might be telling the guardian angel things aren't going so well. So they need special assistance. So if you have a child who's very sick between the ages of 3 and 5, that's one of the reasons. They're being given a choice to either stay on the physical planet or to go back up to the astral world and regroup and get more wisdom and then come back at another time. Now, for those of you saying, oh, she's so cold, she doesn't understand what it means to have a child because she doesn't have children. I had 3 miscarriages. I understand fully what it means to lose the opportunity to have a child. But I'm also a metaphysical teacher. And your child is not your child. It's not like you bought a blouse and now it's your blouse. It's a soul that you are taking responsibility for spiritual guidance, for physical care, for emotional and mental care. And maybe that child, a soul unto itself, didn't anticipate the stress of being in a physical body, and it's too much for them. So I've heard so many parents say there can't be a God, why would they take my child away? It's not your child. You are borrowing the child. You are borrowing the soul. Remember, it grows up, gets married usually, has kids, has a career, moves away. It's not your child. It's a soul that you were given charge of, to nurture and to care for. So I'm not being cruel when I say if your child dies between the ages or at any age, that child's karma was to cross over at that particular time. Maybe they just needed a very short life to finish up the karma for being in a physical body on planet Earth. And you were given the privilege of nurturing that little soul and giving that little soul a happy life. And that is a privilege, to have children. Sadly, many people don't think so. That's usually people who don't practice birth control. So birth control is appropriate for everyone. You should bring children into the world because you want them and because you know you will be a good parent. You might be having astral experiences, near-death experiences, because you're being a lousy parent. And the universe wants to get your attention on how to take care of your children properly. Or perhaps you have several animals as pets, and you're not taking care of them properly, because their souls are just as important as yours. If you think your soul is more important than the average tiger, you're wrong. They have souls. They're different souls, but they have souls. And the God force thinks they're important, or they wouldn't be here on the planet. So therefore, there is a reason why your heart stops beating and your brain wave goes flat. It's to help you understand yourself better, your neighbors better, your life, your family, your surroundings, your circumstances, and what you can do to make things different and improved for yourself. I want you to stay with us because we're coming right back with more Metaphysically Speaking. This is Linda Bennett, Metaphysically Speaking, and we're talking about near-death experiences. Let's talk for a second about organ transplants, because I know there's a big discussion about that. I, as a yogi, and Buddhists and Hindus and most Native American tribes, Hawaiians, most people who have a spiritual understanding, not a religious understanding, terrified of losing the physical body, but a spiritual understanding, have the same feelings about this. To take another person's body parts inside of you, whether they donate a kidney, whether they give you part of their liver, whatever it is, or to take body parts from somebody who has crossed over, is simply to borrow another person's body, taking it into your body. It doesn't belong to you. You're supposed to deal with the karma that you have been given. As far as blood goes, I know the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in blood transplants, or blood transfusions, rather. And it turns out we have the AIDS situation. Hepatitis C kills more people, apparently, I just read the other day, than cancer and heart disease. To me, since the blood changes very quickly, the blood cells change very quickly, if you want the option of taking a blood transfusion that you know is safe and has been pre-screened, that's your choice. Fortunately, I've never been faced with that choice, and I'm not sure I would take it. There are so many indications and records of people who have gone on record with their doctor, with the hospital, stating that suddenly they're craving food they never wanted, they have thoughts they don't understand, they have new thought patterns that they're not comfortable with, they would never consider this before. Why? Because the person whose body parts they have, there's memory in that physical body. Whether the person is what we call alive, or whether the person has died in a car wreck, for instance, you still have the memory of that individual imbued in their cells. And so therefore, you are becoming somebody else, as well as yourself. So you're carrying around another individual inside you. This is also true of heart transplants. Now you're saying, but Linda, so many people live so much longer. Well, at a great expense of time and effort and energy and money, of having to take special medication so you don't reject the organ. You can't get a cold, you can't get the flu, you can't get anything because your immune system is already lowered and you will not be able to fight it off. It's not all glamorous, people. A lot of downsides. A lot of people I've talked to over the years who had heart transplants, and they say they never have another one. They can't stand the emotional confusion. They can't stand the change in themselves. They don't feel like themselves anymore. And the good reason is they're not themselves anymore. They're somebody else as well. So you're saying, well, they've lived happy lives, and well, yes, but it's kept them from moving on to where they should be. If you have a train you have to catch, but you stay in bed all day, you're not going to catch the train. And you're going to miss the opportunities and circumstances that are on the other side of the railroad track or the other side of where the train stops. We all have schedules in life. So you are missing out on the opportunity that you will have crossing over at that time to learn the lessons, to meet up with the other souls you're supposed to meet up with, to make the plans to be with other people you're supposed to be with in your next lifetime. You're also preventing the people who are supposed to move, not take your place, but move into your spot as, say, a spouse or an almost grandparent or another child. And you're taking that person's place because you're not allowing them to come in and live their lives and take care of their responsibilities. So you're not taking care of your responsibilities. You're taking care of somebody else's. You're not letting somebody else take care of their responsibilities. And you got somebody else inside your body. So no, I do not believe in organ transplants, nor do I feel that we should be doing organ transplants. There is so much fabulous research now with stem cells, especially, they were just talking about this, I think it was on the doctors, female stem cells. This is not a joke. I'm just going to preference this. This is not a joke. Female stem cells are more likely to adapt to being a new body part in a new body, finding where they're supposed to go, getting there and reproducing as an eye cell or a liver cell or a heart cell, than male stem cells. And it's the old joke, women stop for directions, men keep driving until they go off the side of the cliff. So I thought that was a fascinating bit of information. Female stem cells do what they need to do. And isn't that the same way in life? We manage, we take care of. How do we do it? We don't know. We're fabulous. But there is so much good proof now that stem cell implantation works. That you don't need somebody else's heart. You don't need somebody else's kidneys or liver. And if you do, try the stem cell. If that doesn't work, it's your time. I know someone who says everybody's got an expiration date. It's true. You can't live forever. Who wants to be 5,000 years old? Who wants to be 500 years old? And no, they weren't that old in the Bible. Let me just reassure you. Nobody was ever 700 years old. Trust me. Honestly, truly, not. So, as a yogi, we do not believe in exchanging body parts. If you want to do it, that's up to you. It's up to your family. It's up to whether or not you can pay for it, because I don't believe I should have to pay for organ transplants. I don't believe in it. And neither do millions of other people around the world. But so many people think it's politically incorrect. I don't care if you think I'm politically incorrect. I'm just giving you the information. You can do with it as you like. Question from my producer.
So, did you already say this? Sorry if you did. But I think it's worth repeating. Do you pick up on the karma of that person?
Yes.
Did you say that already?
No, I didn't say the karma, but you pick up on that person's thought patterns.
Okay, but you also,
will pick up on that person's karma.
That's tricky.
You may suddenly feel you need to visit a cemetery, but you think, I don't know anybody who's died there. And you're wandering around in the cemetery, and maybe you feel drawn to a certain area, and you have no idea why. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the person who died. Maybe it's their gravesite. Maybe it's their husband's or wife's or parents' or grandparents' gravesite. Nothing to do with you. So your life is interrupted with other thoughts from the other person. And if you have multiple organ transplants, God help you. Because every person whose organ is inside your body, you now have their thoughts. And those thoughts may be destructive. Those thoughts may be positive. But they're clogging up your life. Because they're not your karmic situations that you feel compelled to investigate. So you're not getting your lessons taken care of. You're getting somebody else's lessons taken care of. That is a difficult, troubled life. And I don't know anyone, I've never heard an interview with anyone where this is not the case. Where they feel compelled to do other things, to experience other things, to eat different foods. Somebody on Dr. Phil years ago was a vegetarian. She used to meditate. When she came out of surgery for a kidney transplant, I think it was a heart transplant, the first thing she wanted was a beer and KFC. I don't drink. I don't think anybody should. I don't have anything against Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's probably a nice organization, but she was a vegetarian. And she wanted to ride a motorcycle. So after driving herself crazy for weeks and weeks, she finally talked to the doctor. She says, I have to know something. And it turned out it was a young guy who had just had a beer and Kentucky Fried Chicken and was riding home on his motorcycle and was killed. This is clogging up her life. The other thing is transgender operations, or if you're a physical man, you want to be a female and you chop off your male parts and blah, blah. You know what, people? You're born in the physical body. You need to have to learn the lessons. There's no spiritual counseling here in this country. It's whatever doctors and hospitals can experiment on and how they can make money. And it's whatever is politically correct in your social circle. It is not the best for you. There are some people who feel like they came through in a male body and they're female, and vice versa. That's because in your last lifetime you were in a male body, and you've crossed over. It's your turn to cross over into a female body, because we do so every so many lifetimes, maybe 4 or 5, 6, 7, 10 lifetimes as a male. Cross over, same thing as a female, because you're learning your lessons through both aspects of the God force. When you're a male, you're learning wisdom through logic. When you're a female, you're learning wisdom through emotion. However, if you're a male and you're learning wisdom through logic, you must also look at the opposite side so that you can learn emotion. And you can relate to women and children and animals much better than many men. Because they just think, oh, football games. Gotta have a beer.
All right. So, excuse me. If someone's listening to this right now and they're thinking, man, Linda, you're really being hard on guys, and you think you're saying things like girls are all perfect, how would you like to address that? Because I know that's not.
Well, look at the stem cells.
Yeah.
Starting from DNA, we take directions.
We only have a few minutes left, but I just want to clarify that. So
Men are more difficult to deal with on an emotional level because their first lesson is learning wisdom through logic. That's why so many men were so good at math ahead of women for so many years. But with proper education, women can use both sides of the brain, and actually women use both sides of the brain more frequently than men do. Women are learning the wisdom of the universe through emotions, but they can overdo it, especially if it's our time of the month. But men, you've got a time of the month too. They've already proven that one. Done deal. What I'm saying is it's easier to learn wisdom and to be reasonable when you're on an emotional, not over-emotional, not crying and whining, but an emotional level when you're considering other people's feelings. Men like to win. They like to be standing on top of the mountain all by themselves. Women want to build a village. And so therefore, you have a better society building a village than one guy killing everybody and conquering everybody. So you are learning your lessons because you must understand both aspects, the male and the female, and in perfection, neither of the God force. Women tend to take direction better than men. The testosterone, or too much testosterone, makes you think you have to conquer and kill. Or that you're less of a man because you listen to somebody tell you something, which of course is nonsense, but it's from your past lives. Maybe you've been a soldier. Maybe you've been a marauder. Maybe you were a pirate. And you had to make quick decisions and you got used to being the bully. Well, guess what? You don't bully your way into the heavens. And you don't cry and whine your way into the heavens. There's no manipulation of the God force. And if you think you can manipulate yourself and other people around you, you're wrong. You might get away with it in the short run, but the universe is going to figure out a way to trip you up. So for a man to suddenly try to become a woman and a woman to try to become a man, you are losing the point of your life, which is to learn your lessons in the body you were given. Now, someone's going to say, what if you are an hermaphrodite? That's sexual organs, not complete necessarily, but sexual organs of both sexes. Now they can do genetic testing to find out what you truly are. It could be that you were a twin and you absorbed the other twin because the twin decided it couldn't live in this lifetime. So you absorbed the nutrition from the twin and you got hormones from the twin. It could be, and this is not pleasant but true, and if you think about it today, how many people do sexual torture on each other. How many sadists are discovered? How many people were in the Nazi death camps and were sexually tortured? How many people were in the fascists in Italy? How many people have been sexually raped and murdered? So that leaves an imprint. And you must pay that back. It's karma. So the lesson on the near-death experiences is the universe helping you. You're not being punished because you had a car accident and you were unconscious for 3 days and close to death, or maybe you had surgery and your heart stopped. It's the universe helping you understand why you're here and what you can do to make things better and who you really are. And how can you improve your own life so that you reach your maximum capacity? Everyone should graduate from high school. Everyone should have further training, whether you're a plumber, a bricklayer, a school teacher, a doctor. Everyone should be able to take their place in society. And sometimes you need a whack over the head as a reminder. Because you can get caught up with thinking, oh, I have to belong to this social organization, I have to be in this sorority, I have to be in this category of people, and I have to have this much money. And you're worried about garbage. Because God doesn't care how much money you have. God cares what you do with it. God doesn't care how pretty you are or handsome you are. God cares what you do with it. So if you have a joy of children, and you don't have children, perhaps you can't have them in this lifetime because maybe you didn't take care of them properly in another lifetime, and you or your husband or your wife want children, adopt. Don't hire someone to be your surrogate because your child is going to carry the memories of being in that woman's body. So therefore, it's not really your kid anyway. There are millions of children around the world who need to be adopted, and you don't always have to go to Africa. There are children in the United States of America and Canada who desperately need a home. So near-death experiences are a blessing from the universe to give you information to show you how to live appropriately on the planet. And we'd love to see you check us out on Facebook. Leave your comments or your questions or suggestions for a show that you'd like me to see cover. The next program we're going to do is on open metaphysical questions, which means anything you want to know. So please leave your information, your name, and whatever you leave there, and your full question or your comment, and we will read everything and take those suggestions and turn them into programs for you. This is Linda Bennett with Metaphysically Speaking, and if you just open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you will know that God and the angels are always with you.